Good evening and welcome to our Wednesday night Lenten services. We begin by singing Holden Evening Prayer together.
Jesus Christ, you are the light of the world.
The light no darkness can overcome.
Stay with us now, for it is evening,
and the day is almost over.
Let your light scatter the darkness
and shine within your people here.
Joyous light of heavenly dawning, loving glow of God's own face, you who sing creation's story, shine on every land and race. Now as evening falls around us, we shall raise our songs to you, God of daybreak, God of shadows, come and light our hearts anew. In the stars that grace the darkness, in this blazing sun of dawn, in the light of peace and wisdom, we can hear your quiet song. Love that fills the night with wonder, love that warms the weary soul, love that bursts all chains asunder, set us free and make us whole. You who made the heavens splendor, every dancing star of night, make us shine with gentle justice. Let us each reflect your light. Mighty God of all creation, gentle Christ who lights our way, loving Spirit of salvation, lead us on to endless day.
May God be with you all.
And also with you.
Let us sing our thanks to God.
It is right to give God thanks and praise.
Blessed are you, Creator of the universe. From old you have led your people by night and day. May the light of your Christ make our darkness bright. For your word and your presence are the light of our pathways, and you are the light and life of all creation.
Let my prayers rise up like incense before you, the lifting up of my hands as an offering to you. Oh God, I call to you, come to me now. Oh, come to my voice when I cry. May our prayers come before you, O God, as incense, and may your presence surround and fill us, so that in union with all creation, we might sing your praise and your love in our lives. Amen.
Yeah, go ahead and say whatever it is you want to say about yourself.
Okay, well, my name's Steve Hagen. I was born in Minnesota and raised in a Lutheran church, as a matter of fact. And I don't know if your congregation knows Karna as well. She's a friend of yours, but Karna Hagen is my niece, and she's pastor. Well, I don't know the name of her new church now. She has moved to Stillwater, but
I think it's Our Saviors.
Our
Yeah.
Saviors. Yeah. And so that's been my background, is in Lutheranism and not quite the mainline Lutheran church, but and went through that with my brother Morris, who became pastor, a Lutheran pastor, and father of Karna. So, but I took an interest in Buddhism fairly early on. I was probably about 8 years old or so when our oldest brother, who's 12 years older than me, he's deceased now, but he when he was in college, he was studying something, and anyway, was a little bit interested in Buddhist thinking, and particularly the idea that of no self, or not self, that we don't find a self within our direct experience. And that intrigued me a bit. And so that kind of stayed with me until I was in college myself. And little by little, I just kept looking at this more. So, but eventually, the long and short of it is, I became, well, we sometimes say a Zen priest, but I got into Soto Zen Buddhism. And but to say a priest is the wrong connotation. It's not at all like, say, a Catholic priest or something of that sort.
Right.
The real term, it literally means home leaver. But one who, has pretty much spent my adult life now in just living out of a direct awareness of reality. And in that we find peace, which is very central to the heart of our practice, which is meditation. So that's one of the two central components to it: meditation, or tranquility, calmness, settledness, and also the other component would be awareness. And actually, when the Buddha was asked to sum up his teaching in a single word, he said awareness. But this isn't awareness necessarily of anything in particular, but just awareness in general, just being awake, present, here, but settled and calm, peaceful. And with this, maybe we can find a mind that opens up to what is really taking place, and where we don't have to be tossed away by all the vicissitudes of life and that sort of thing. So very quickly, that was my background, I guess. But I guess also this is your second question, is what does the word peace mean to me? Well, it is just that, of this tranquility and calmness, finding this. Even in the midst of this very topsy-turvy world, especially this past year, with the COVID virus and politically and all the various things, in environmental threats and all of this collapse. And so there's a lot here to disturb us and to rile us up. And but our way of practice is, at its heart, is to be peace, to live it out, and to come back to it, and to recognize in your own heart and your mind when you're about to be tossed away by one thing or another. So this is very central to what I've studied and practiced pretty much my whole adult life now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really interesting, from what I know about Buddhism, that there's that sense that the world will always be crazy. There's always going to be something going on. And if you're waiting for that to settle down so that you can feel better, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And the world can even be relatively calm, and people come to it with their own dis-ease. And so you have to get to the root of yourself
Yeah.
before you can find any peace in the world.
Exactly. Yeah.
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 And meditation is a huge piece of that.
Oh, yeah. hmm But we
Yeah.
don't use the meditation to get us to that point. But
Okay.
when we just practice it, it's best if we can on a daily basis, and gradually, we can. Well, we really start to notice when we ourselves are not peaceful in our own hearts and minds, and in noticing that, we can begin to settle out. Because nobody really wants that. If we really start to see that for what it is, it's painful, and it brings in a lot of misery and
Yeah.
arguing and fighting and squabbling and one-upping, and it's endless, the stuff that goes on. That's not peaceful at all. And
Yeah.
we see how much suffering is tied in with that. When we start to really realize that, we can begin to let it drop away.
Yeah. And I think you're talking about a sense to which many of us are unaware of what's truly going on within ourselves,
Yeah.
and how this leads to this and this leads to this.
hmm
And so meditation is sort of maybe seeing and starting to have the
You just see it.
dots revealed.
Yeah. We don't do anything about it in a sense that we start actively trying to make changes, because that's actually not peaceful.
Mhm.
That creates more disturbance. So we learn to just see it. And in seeing this and really getting to know it, then now we can begin to act and speak peacefully in that manner. If we deliberately try to bring that about, it just keeps perpetuating the
Yeah.
kinds of knots and entanglements and things that we otherwise uh, keep ourselves bound up with.
Yeah.
It's a very subtle thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, the mind is tricky that way.
it certainly is, yes.
I've noticed someone mentioned this kind of with my personality structure, at least the way that one of the ways that I understand it is the need to be the best at something. And when I discovered spirituality, the unconscious thought was, we're going to be the best at spirituality.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
once I noticed that thought, it was hilarious, but
Yeah, it doesn't really work that way. So,
no.
but we can find that out. We find that out by approaching it even with the wrong ideas.
Yeah.
Eventually, if we stay with it and we're honest with ourselves, we can begin to see that.
Yeah. So the next question, I know that this may be kind of an interesting one, but it's, how does peace apply to your line of work, and where do you see or not see peace efforts? Maybe kind of a strange question, but go off of it as you will.
Well, the understanding that we have is, I noticed you had the word strive here.
Mm,
What do you strive to do in regards to peace? Well, to cultivating peace. And well, one of the things we point out pretty early on is that this doesn't really involve striving or struggling or straining to bring about some result. We actually come to see that over time, that this is how we perpetuate kind of the opposite of peace. It's sort of like, going to war to establish peace or something like that.
right.
It's just not the
Right.
way to go about it. Our understanding is, and we can see this if we allow it to unfold, peace is sort of the natural backdrop of reality of the world. And if we don't stir it up, if we don't, keep, trying to force our will on others in some way, even if we have peaceful ideas, or we have, good ideas, we want to bring about good and the end of suffering and all of this. But if we go at it in kind of a, deliberate, we got to make these changes and work upon these people here and straighten them out over that and one thing or another, this just simply is not peaceful. And our understanding comes to a point where we realize this is not the way to bring about peace. The only way to bring about peace really is just to find this within your own heart and mind, and then begin to act out of that. And with that, now we can help to just, I don't know if I can't really even use the word establish, but just to bring about peace in the world. If even only in our local little sphere around us, that's very helpful. but in general as well. This is the way to peace. But it's just that really it's a matter of just stopping trying to bring about this result or that result. With the understanding of like the golden rule, for example, in Buddhism, might seem very strange. Of course, we know that Jesus talked about that. I think, is that in Matthew? I don't remember now. But do unto others as you would have them do unto you. The Buddhist understanding of that very same thought, and it really is the same thing, but it is kind of the negative version of it, which doesn't sound so positive or good or whatever, but it really works like this: is that do not do unto others what you would not have done unto you. It's not prescriptive or direct. It's not a direction or a directive. It's not telling you what to do, but it is, and this is very central to our practice, is to look at your own heart, look at your own actions, look at your own mind. And again, this is where we can find peace, but the peace is if we stop and let things will naturally settle out. And so if there's something here, you might be engaged with others in such a way that is, if you look carefully, what you're trying to apply to them, you wouldn't want someone else trying to apply that to you. So don't do that. And this is a way to help bring about peace once again. Rather than say, well, I got a good idea and you have a good heart and you really do mean to do well and to help those people, but that's kind of the wrong attitude. It's a wrong approach, So, so this is something that this goes to the very heart and core and the central understanding and teaching that we find in Buddhism, actually.
That's very cool. And one question that I had was, with all the unrest, and there's been a lot of conversation about, family members who think differently than you politically or whatnot, and, who voted which way and what's the right way to proceed. How would you have conversation with or be with people who had such fundamental differences to you, who really saw the world strikingly different?
Yeah, well, the best way, if you want to engage them in some way, or they're engaging you, is, well, again, not to attack their views or something like that. That isn't helpful at all. They'll just tighten down on them all the more and go after you. And so our way is just simply, listen to them, hear them out, and kind of take them at their word. And this is how they're viewing it. But then maybe gently you can just ask them some questions, and to help them to look at their own, because this is for each of us. I'm looking at, for each of us, I'll look at the stuff I'm holding to, and I might invite others, to do the same, but to do this in a peaceful way, not a directive way or whatever. But you can do that simply by asking them a question about, something that they might have said or that they believe in or think is right or good or whatever. And in this way, for each of us, we can begin to examine our own minds, our own hearts. And this is where we start to notice the kind of the rough patches, the things that bring about sorrow and pain and misery. And that's the way, and it's through getting acquainted with that in ourselves that we can begin to, find our way toward a more peaceful, harmonious life with others, So, and that's in general, that's the approach that we'll take, So, but not to engage in a combative way, or, you voted for, do you realize we just, that doesn't help, because they'll just do the same as well, and they're probably holding very tightly to views that you find abhorrent, and well, we're not going to get very far, if we keep confronting. And so it's just basically, take them at face value, at least when you first engage, and really find out where they are, where they're coming from. It's it's surprising, but it's really not that difficult to find common ground. where we can really begin to discuss some things. And then from there, more and more things might begin to open up that will start touching on other things. But all along the way, we have to be mindful of our own intention and our own mind and, and what we're saying and stuff like this. You know, because you know, as in the Buddhist way, the most important thing is to well, to establish some trust, but also is to maintain calmness and peacefulness and settledness. And so we become sensitive to that rather than to make this point or to push that view or whatever. It's to let's get settled here first, and then we can work. You know, we'll talk. We can discuss these other things little by little, and in this way we can kind of move forward in a more peaceful world. You know, so.
I love what you're saying, and then I look back at behaviors and actions I have done, which have not been that.
Yeah, well, me too. I mean, but this is part of our practice too. You look at yourself, but you also learn to not judge. Don't judge yourself. You know, we all make mistakes. Well, we learn from making it, as long as we are open to looking at ourselves. But we have to learn to do this in a non-judgmental way, and then with that, we can also turn it as we're facing others, and we don't have to judge them either. And you know, so we can really truly engage them, you know, in a positive way.
Yeah. I'm curious, before we wrap up, if what your thoughts are, if there is a place for activism or peacefully standing up for a certain right in Buddhism. Is that a part of the tradition?
No, it's not part of the tradition for pretty much, you know, the reasons that I've been talking about.
Yeah.
It's just a kind of approach that's somewhat foreign. However, today in the modern world, there are certain Buddhist sects that are trying to engage in this way. They call it engaged Buddhism. But it runs somewhat counter to the traditional ways of going about this, and it could easily skid off into these areas that I've pointed out can be problematic. And so it's a pretty delicate thing, but it really isn't part of the original traditional way, which mostly is you'll look at yourself first, you know, before you do all of that out there, and really get acquainted with your own mind and your own heart, and from there you can begin to act, you know, in the world. But to have a program or a, you know, project, we're going to do this, or we're going to establish that, and it just the understanding is that it doesn't work. We want to do, yes, and like me too. I want us all to get along and to be peaceful and to love each other and all of this. But you can't just go over there and force everybody to do this. It's just, or even anyone to do this.
Yeah.
So it just requires patience too. So another thing we cultivate and we look at is patience. And our understanding of patience is you can only practice it when you're not patient. You know, if you can tolerate it, just sit there and, you know, but you're not really being patient. It's when something's right up there in your face and you don't like it. And so you can practice patience. So it's one of our practices that we look at. Again, so much of it is particularly in the moral issues. You're looking at what you're doing yourself, and the cast of your own mind and all this sort of thing.
It's a real huge belief that peace is really beginning with yourself. And it involves a huge amount of self-awareness, but the non-judgment, because I know that is a huge thing, that once you start to look in yourself, the first thing you do is to say, wow, I'm awful. And that judgment comes, and it makes it hard for you to keep going. Until you're able to release that and to say, we're all kind of in the same boat on this regard. So let it go. And well, it's really fascinating. I feel like I've got a lot more questions for you, but this is
good to meet with you, Terry.
A really, really good start. And I just want to end by saying that when we talked a couple of years ago, you mentioned there are Lutheran Buddhists, Lubus.
Oh yeah, Lubus,
and I thought that was great that
there's Jew boos and Lubus, and I don't know, there's all kinds of. The thing about Buddhism is that there's certain sects of Buddhism that might become a little bit more, say, belief ridden or something like that. But if you get back to the core, the heart of the teachings, they're wide open for anybody. You
Yeah.
can take whatever view you're born into, or you have, or whatever belief you might have. Buddhism it's not a belief system. It isn't going to get in there and try to kick out your beliefs and establish something else. Again, it's pretty much like what I've been saying here. It's just,
Yeah.
it's how you act and how you live in the world,
Yeah.
not what you're hanging on to.
Yeah, and it's just a really different way of looking at things. But
Yes,
I think it's really cool to know that they don't have to be incongruous. That actually you
that's right.
can be a
Mhm.
Lutheran with your belief system, but you're behaving
Mhm.
and practicing
Yeah.
certain Buddhist techniques.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of moral teachings and things I learned as a boy, in the Lutheran Church, and that I still honor and respect and practice if they make sense to me and they hold up.
Sure.
But I do it with this kind of approach that I've been discussing here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this isn't about forsaking or getting rid of other particular necessarily. I mean, some you might begin to realize aren't healthy and helpful and that sort of thing,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll drop away too if you really start to notice this.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really all it is. It isn't about forcing a belief or changing your mind or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Again, so therefore it has a chance of being peaceful.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Well, this is really interesting. And I think it's a wonderful compliment to some of the other people we've been talking to. It'd be interesting to see how we puzzle piece all of this stuff together. So thank you so much for
Well, thank you,
joining
Siri.
me on this and giving me your perspective. That's wonderful.
The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. An angel went from God to a town called Nazareth, to a woman whose name was Mary. The angel said to her, "Rejoice, O highly favored, for God is with you. You shall bear a child, and his name shall be Jesus, the chosen one of God Most High." And Mary said, "I am the servant of my God. I live to do your will. My soul proclaims your greatness, O God, and my spirit rejoices in you. You have looked with love
Great and merciful God, source and ground of all goodness and life, give to your people the peace that passes all understanding and the will to live your gospel of mercy and justice through Jesus Christ our Lord.
Amen.
God, remember us in your love and teach us to pray.
Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name.
Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as in heaven.
Give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. Save us from the time of trial and deliver us from evil. For the kingdom, the power, and the glory are yours, now and forever. Amen.
Let us bless our God. Praise and thanks to you. May God Creator bless us and keep us. May Christ be ever light for our lives. May the Spirit of love be our guide and path for all of our days.
Go in peace.